Welcome back, everyone, to Fintech Mavericks. I'm Nicole Casperson, and today we're joined by someone I deeply admire, Tanya Van Court, founder and CEO of Goalsetter, a fintech platform teaching kids and families how to build healthy financial habits that last a lifetime. From Nickelodeon to fintech founder, Tanya has built a platform that's part financial education, part banking app, and all mission. With tools like game-based literacy quizzes and learn before you burn debit card features, Goalsetter is flipping the script on how we raise the next generation of savers and investors. Now, Tanya's career spans tech, media, education, and financial services, and she's bringing all of that into fintech with purpose. A woman after my own heart. Tanya, welcome to Fintech Mavericks. So excited to have you.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm so excited to be here, and the admiration is mutual. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk with you and connect with you on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It is Monday morning, so we are full of energy and keeping it real on a rainy Brooklyn Monday. Are you in Brooklyn right now?
I am. We're both in Brooklyn experiencing the same rain.
I know. I'm staring at my backyard like, winter is long and forever, and when will spring come? I don't know, but we'll bring some sunshine right now. So you had this incredible career from ESPN to Nickelodeon to launching Goalsetter. Talk to us about the light bulb moment that sparked the idea of Goalsetter to begin with.
Well, it's interesting, Nicole. Unlike many other founders, mine was actually 2 light bulbs, and they were many years apart. So to just give you a little bit of my background, I grew up in Oakland, California. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and she taught me everything she could about everything before I even hit a formal school or classroom. So by the time I got to kindergarten, I could read, I could do, multiple digit multiplication. Like, I was prepared. The one thing that she didn't teach me about was money, because that was the one thing that she didn't know anything about. And so, fast forward, I have this really great academic pedigree and background. I went to Stanford. I got a couple degrees in engineering, but I didn't have any kind of pedigree in financial education. So I graduate from Stanford. I get amazing jobs. And in one of my jobs, which was in Silicon Valley, they gave me a bunch of stock and stock options. And I was like, I have no idea what these are or what to do with them. So I'm just going to leave them there. So I just keep my head down. I do my job, right? Great move for someone with an imposter syndrome, which so many of us have in our 20s, right? And beyond. Right. So I keep my head down. I'm doing my job because I think the way to make money is to get a promotion. I have no idea what this stock is going to do for me. So I pick my head up one day. I'm 28 years old, and the stock is worth about $1 million. Oh, but that was short-lived, because by the end of the day, the big tech bubble had burst, Nicole Casperson, and it went from $1 million down to about $20,000 in one day.
Oh, it's so
yeah,
painful.
That was my feeling too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, So then, wow. Okay, first of all, kudos to your mom for everything that she did teach you early. And you're like just a couple engineering degrees, just a few. And then in Stanford. But it is a crazy thing, right? It doesn't matter what level of like pedigree or education that you have, unless you come from like a family that's going to take the time to do that kind of thing, to teach you about money, then you're probably not getting that education. You're definitely not getting it in our school system. All right. So then this is kind of the precursor, I feel like, in one of the light bulbs.
You've got it. That's right.
All right.
So that was light bulb number 1. So light bulb number 1 was exactly what you said. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If no one teaches you about financial education, you'll be broke. Right. Mm-hmm. So that was light bulb number 1. And so then, fast forward many years, I moved to Brooklyn. I had my daughter, Gabrielle. And, one of the things that first light bulb also taught me was I couldn't turn back the hands of time, but I could make sure this didn't happen to my own kids, this lack of financial education. So I start teaching my daughter, Gabrielle, everything I can about money from the time she's born. And when she was 8, about to turn 9, she said, Mommy, for my 9th birthday, I really only want 2 things. And I said, what's that? And she said, enough money to save for an investment account and a bike.
Wow.
And that was light bulb number 2. And so light bulb number 2 was, wow, if I can get every kid like you to say that I can change the world, right? If every 8-year-old out there in Brooklyn and beyond says, I want to save for an investment account for my 9th birthday, then, we have a very different world that we live in. So that was my light bulb number 2.
Wow. Okay. So we have the personal experience that happened to you, which is losing all of that money in the stock market, but then also the part where, okay, like I can break this cycle with my own children.
Totally.
So then when were you like, I should make a fintech company? What were you doing when like you're educating your daughter? I mean, I'm pretty sure you were like at one point leading education for like Nick Jr., which means you basically have taught me, Tanya.
That's true.
In my lifetime.
Wow, thank you. I feel very accomplished then because look at you.
You're right. I mean, when I read that in your bio, I was like, oh my gosh, I was telling Anton, I was like, Nick Jr., that's like, I was watching that when I was to age myself. But I was watching that, and that was a form of education. So like you've educated children for a while.
Yeah.
You finally see this moment in your own, daughter. When was it like, I should build a tech platform? Or
it's so crazy because yes, I have been at Nickelodeon. To your point, I ran Nickelodeon, all of their preschool and parenting digital divisions. I was at ESPN where I launched ESPN3, which was the first digital video streaming player in the cable industry. So this was before HBO Now, before HBO Go. ESPN was one of the leaders in the streaming space. And then I was at Discovery Education where I led the launch of digital textbooks into classrooms across the country. So I had this great background in how do you create amazing and compelling digital products that are also in many instances educational. So when my daughter said that, my immediate thought was, oh my gosh, if I can teach her to be excited about and think this is fun, then I can teach everyone. And if I can bring all of those fun and engaging skills and tools and content creation and app creation, if I can bring all of that from my media space into the financial services space, then yeah, I can get every kid out there excited about money in the same way that she is. So that was the thought. And I'll tell you, Nicole, fintech never entered my mind in that thinking process because I didn't know what fintech was. Like literally. I mean, I was a media and entertainment exec. I was a mom. I was coming from this entirely different space. And all I thought about was like, wow, financial services. It really only teaches people how to send money and spend money. That's all I see in the ecosystem, right? We've got Venmo, we've got Cash App, we've got, all of the banking services. And no one was teaching kids how to save and to invest. And so my real desire was not to be a fintech exec. My desire was to transform what they were putting into my kids' life and into other kids' lives.
I think that's the mentality that most folks that we talk to on these podcasts have, which is, I'm not thinking about being a fintech founder. I'm just thinking about solving a problem based on these values that mean a lot to me. I guess, obviously Goalsetter is so values driven. Did you always kind of know that you wanted to build a company that was rooted in purpose, even though you were like in this media exec land transforming over to entrepreneurship? That's a big leap.
Yeah, it is. And I did always know that whatever I did, I wanted it to be rooted in purpose. And the truth is, the reason I left corporate America is because I felt that while I was making a difference in those seats that I sat in, I often felt like I can do more. I'm supposed to do more. I'm meant to do more. It really was for me like a higher power calling. It was something in my gut that said, lots of people can sit in this seat and kind of do what you're doing and move this along. But there are few people who can go and create something transformative that will truly transform, a trajectory of the next generation. I care deeply about kids. I know that my lens is unique in America, right? I mean, listen, how many people come from Stanford, but also come from Oakland, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't get that mix. How many people, have friends who are very senior executives, but also have, friends who are bus drivers in Brooklyn. And
Mm-hmm.
so this combination that I'm able to bring of, yes, I have all of this fantastic experience and pedigree and work experience, but I also, quite frankly, Nicole, I am most comfortable walking amongst the people. And those are the folks who I care deeply about solving their problems because we don't need another app that's going to allow people who are already wealthy to get wealthier. We don't need another app that's going to allow people to send money faster, right? We need something that is truly going to take care of the people that are on that app, not take advantage of the people who are on that app. And that's what I saw too many fintech apps doing, right? Those folks in Silicon Valley, they say, how can I get my app to spread like wildfire? Oh, wow, I'm going to start in Atlanta. I'm going to give each of them $5 to spread this app to their friends. And then we're going to go grow up the Eastern Seaboard and grow across the South. That was literally a quote from one of the most used fintech apps in the nation. That's how they grew. Started in Atlanta, went up the Eastern Seaboard, went down south. Now you tell me what those folks got from that app other than $5 to tell a friend and the ability to send their money very quickly with fees. They didn't get much at all. So yes, I do feel a responsibility to create something that is mission driven and impactful and taking care of those folks, not just taking advantage of them for the growth of my business.
Right. Well, and the thing is that that's actually how you create a business that lasts, right? Is if you actually fundamentally solve a problem people are having, right? And I think there's a lot of discussion in the industry around personal finance management and how it's been difficult, right, for apps and fintech platforms to really like crack the code on PFM. And yeah, there's the investing apps, but they're not like totally holistic. And I've always thought and encouraged that, well, maybe it's because no one is actually solving the fundamental issue, which is it's so cool you've made investing easy. No one knows what they're doing. Like you can give this amazing tool and its quickness and $5 to someone, but if they don't know, and you could even add education into the app, but I found, even just as a founder myself, you really have to tell people exactly what to do or they're not going to do it.
100%, because it's scary. And because, they don't have other people in their lives who are doing it or who can give them tutoring around doing it. So most people are looking to financial apps or their banks or financial institutions to teach them these things. But guess what? Those institutions have no teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I guarantee Goalsetter is one of the very few financial apps in the country that has a whole teaching and learning team. We have people who know how to teach, know how to engage, know how to create fun and engaging content. We have content that's produced by media executives
There you go.
and producers, right? Not by a guy who's worked in a bank for the last 30 years who's like, oh, maybe, we need to create some financial education.
Right.
Bankers don't do financial education well. It's why financial education has never been fun and engaging, and it's always kind of boring and banky. So yes, to your good point, like we have people who are out there using these tools. They are looking for help and looking for support. And the people who they are looking to don't know how to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talk to us about how you really turned all of this into a business model, right? Into a strategy that ultimately does create profit, drive revenue, right? Helped you raise, how much have you raised at this point?
$30 million.
$30 million. There you go. Has raised $30 million, has gone investing. Some of your investors are, I think, people we may know.
They are people we know. So Edward Jones is one of our investors, PNC Bank, Mass Mutual, MasterCard, and also Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Robert F. Smith, So we have some amazing investors.
Yeah. And so you've done a lot with this great vision for the founders and other entrepreneurs that are listening, that want to create that scalable and revenue driving but value based business model, which the trifecta seems most challenging to perfect. How did you figure it out, I guess? And maybe feel free to walk us through what made sense at the beginning, any trial and errors.
Listen, I think the most important thing is to understand that ultimately you are creating, if any business, you're creating a product or a service for people. And sometimes those people are end consumers. Sometimes those people are other corporations. But at the end of the day, whatever you're being used is whatever you are creating is being used by people. And so if you understand their values, if you understand what matters to them, if you understand how other companies have failed them, and you can think about how, you want to be different, do different, plug in the hole and the gap, that in and of itself allows for you to become mission aligned, because then your mission is aligning with your business. When you create a product, that product is serving the mission, not just of you as a business, but it's serving the mission of those end users, right? So for me, I went out when I started Goalsetter, I went out and I talked to a bunch of moms and I said, talk to me about how you do finance for your kids. Talk to me about birthdays and holidays and what those look like. Talk to me about allowance. Talk to me about anything that relates to money for your kids. And what I heard back from them was, my kids get way too much stuff on birthdays and holidays. And by the way, this was all parents. They could be wealthy or wealth seeking. My kids get way too much stuff on birthdays and holidays. I actually hide some of it in a closet and then go give it away after the birthday or holiday because I don't want my kid to be spoiled. So that's a fail. Allowance, I have a hard time managing it. And so, there's no good way for me to manage it. We are creating a spreadsheet to manage allowance. And that's really difficult and hard. Family members and friends want to send money, but they're sending like a $50 bill in a card. And then I've got to go to the bank and deposit it for my kid and then, figure out that bank account and how it relates to my kid. And that's hard. So anything that was surrounding kids and money was hard. But fundamentally, the other thing that was really hard is parents didn't know how to teach their kids about money. So half of it was the operational pieces, but the other half of it was the education. Parents said, I don't know about these money concepts myself. No one ever taught me. So how am I expected to teach my kids? And so, yes, please help me to teach my kids about money. So as we talked to parents and we figured out what their values were teaching their kids to save, not just spend. Their values were helping their kids to understand core concepts of money, so that they could become a saver and investor and understand early on what interest rates mean, what the rule of 72 means, what all of these concepts that the parents couldn't understand, right? Their values were ensuring that they could make money easy in their house from an operational perspective because it was clunky and it was hard. So as I figured out what things value to them, then we created a platform that worked for them and their kids, Nicole. One of the things that we used to say at Nickelodeon was, it's our job to make sure parents turn the channel to Nickelodeon when they turn it on. But it's also our job to make sure that kids say, don't turn that channel. So when you are trying to be values-based and create a business that matters to the people who you're developing it for, you talk to them and you make sure that you're developing something that is meaningful for both of the constituencies in our instance that we were speaking to. We were speaking to parents and we were speaking to kids. And we had to make sure it worked for parents, but it was also fun and engaging and it met kids where they are. And so that's the place with which, that's the place where we started. We started in a place where we were like, education is really important to parents. Ease of use is really important to parents. So check. We've got to hit those two. We've got to nail those two on the head. But fun and engaging is really important to kids. And so that's when we got into features like learn before you burn. So what Learn Before You Burn is, we have a debit card that if a parent activates this feature, Learn Before You Burn, on Sunday morning, it automatically freezes if your kid hasn't taken their financial literacy quiz for the week yet.
Ooh.
And the minute they take the quiz, boom, the card unfreezes again. So who is that for, right? That's for parents. Now, parents get the education for their kids. They don't have to be bothered like asking their kid, did you do the quiz? Did you do hey, I need you to do your financial education quiz. It just happens automagically, right? And it is truly producing kids who are financially capable and fluent. So then what did we do for kids? Well, we made sure that those weekly financial education quizzes were all fun and engaging and centered around pop culture. So when Beyonce says, can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills? We use that to explain Beyonce wouldn't need anyone to pay her bills. If she would just save for an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of her expenses, Beyonce could pay for her own bills. And now this kid understands what an emergency fund is, but he got it through a fun and engaging Beyonce reference. So, so fundamentally, what I would say to your question is if you understand your audience, then you create for your audience and you create something that sometimes they don't even know they want. But they can articulate pieces of it so that you can develop that solution and give them what they need.
Really well said. I think that really plays to the importance of that founder market fit, right? It's you coming from a media background, knowing what's going to work for kids. It's so true. Why are we putting why would you put like a random banker on in front of a camera to try to educate anyone on investing? And it's not like they couldn't, they can, but that's not really necessarily what they're doing. Like go hire an actor and give them a script. Like it'll be so much more exciting and engaging and something people actually want.
Yes.
I actually feel that myself in like how much advantage I have coming from a media background myself and being in this space and how much more just fun and engaging I can make content than the kind of stodgy work that is put out there. But I think you have such a great founder market fit because of your background, coming from and I'm a mixed kid myself, so I know what it's like to like come from two different worlds and like bridge that together to kind of be the only person that could really solve for this massive gap in the world. That's how I feel as an entrepreneur myself. The thing about I think that tends to happen in the world is that when you're ultra mission based, people will like bucket you and think that, oh, that's so sweet that she cares about kids and education, or in my case, like women in finance and fintech. Is she is she a nonprofit? Is she a profitable business? And I'm like, excuse me, yes, I make money. And so what I think that's a thing that I would love to hear from you is like when you are so value and purpose driven and you're solving such this fundamental need, and the world will bucket you, especially the business world will bucket you into impact, purpose, right? Like these, as if they're not as profitable as that shiny SaaS product, right? It's how did you convince your investors that this was the way to do this and that it would ultimately return dividends in the long run? Like, how do you communicate that?
Yeah. That is such a great question, Nicole, which is why I love talking to you, because you ask great questions. And so I'll tell you, and I think we all know this, and you just talked about the fact that you're a mixed kid yourself, whether folks are mixed kids or non-mixed kids, code switching is real. And code switching isn't just about the language that you use. It's about the stories that you tell. And so, there are times when I can walk in and have a conversation with someone like Kevin Durant's team or Chris Paul's team and say, we believe that in success, this is what we can enable and empower the world to look like, right? And this is a very different world than any of us have seen. And this is a world that we all deserve to see. And they get it completely, right? If I'm going in and talking to an investor who I know is going to pigeonhole me if I talk about impact or if I talk about some of the great work that we're doing for communities that are underserved, and who is going to discount me and who is ultimately not going to invest in me, then those aren't the notes that I, bring to the forefront of my song. The notes that I bring to the forefront of my song are things like, hey, Goalsetter went to Stanford, Harvard, and the University of Pennsylvania. And we took a 15 question quiz and gave it to more than 1,000 students at those universities. And on average, 51% of those students, or on average, those students got 51% of those questions right. These are students at the best universities in the country who do not know core concepts of financial education. And so this problem that we're solving for, it's not a Black problem or a white problem. It's not a red problem or a blue problem. It's not a wealthy problem or a wealth-seeking problem. It is an American problem. And you should take this quiz home and give it to your kid and see how they fare. And so, there are certainly moments where you have to understand who your audience is and choose your notes. And it's not disingenuous. It's survival, right? It is helping people to see you in an expansive way instead of in a limited way, because people do often like to pigeonhole and limit those who come from a different background. And, I saw that for sure early on, right? I had Black investors who said, I can't invest in you because, the Black market isn't big enough. And it just made me scratch my head because I never said, hey, this is the only market that I'm intending to pursue. Right. And so, that pigeonholing can come from more places than you can expect. And so you really just have to understand how to make your message expansive, but also how to show them the dollars and cents behind your message. Right. So for Goalsetter, we are B2B. We are serving banks, financial institutions, wealth management firms that are looking to get to the next generation. And they don't know how to engage the next generation because it's something that they've never done before. But it is critically important for them to do it now, because if they don't do it now, that next generation are all going to go and start using all of the digital platforms that are marketing to them from the time that they are 12 years old and on TikTok or on Instagram, right? That's where they're going to go. And so it's critically important for all of the financial institutions to understand this next generation and understand how to engage them. And that is not that's not, again, a Black thing or a white thing or a social impact thing or an underprivileged thing. It's a business thing, and it's a markets thing, and it's how they can continue to stay in business. And at the end of the day, that's what we all need to talk about. How are we providing a product or a service that makes our partners more money, that makes them more successful, that makes them more relevant as they are looking for their own path to profitability and, path to more profit?
Yeah, no, I think that's incredible advice too, just even for founders who are navigating rooms where maybe they're the only that look like them, or even just founders in general that do have more of this like vision around value and that purpose, but just knowing how to tweak the messaging even just a bit, right? Like to to your point, right? Like cherry picking the best parts, right? And presenting those first. And then also, I mean, it's what I do if I'm writing a story or a book or whatever, right? I'm just then finding the data that inevitably backs up my case. And a lot of the times I can even just come from your customer base. If you're constantly talking to them and you're constantly quizzing them or evaluating them, then you can just show, oh, hey, this isn't a women's thing or a Black thing or a red thing or a blue thing. This is a people thing. So, and I hold the keys to this. If you'd like to jump on, this is a massive business opportunity. I agree with that. I wish we would think less in this, like these realms of identity, especially when it comes into like the pigeonholing elements, right? Like even, with my work, if someone's like, are you worried because of the way the world is? And I was like, all the time. But honestly, like I stand on business. So
absolutely.
You either want to be a part of the money train or you don't want to be on the money train. is how I think of it.
100%, right? And, I think a great example of this is Cash App, right? When Cash App came out, lots of people were already using Venmo, but Cash App was used primarily by African Americans. And they are the ones who spread the word about Cash App, right? Now, that was an opportunistic fintech founder in Silicon Valley who said, this Black audience can be important to my growth. But had that been a Black founder who went to pitch for money and said, I'm going to launch a competitor to Venmo and I'm going to take advantage of Black people using this product and service, they wouldn't have gotten funded, right? There is no way they would have gotten funded. At the end of the day, no one asked those founders of Cash App, what ethnicity are your users, right? They didn't care about that. They were like, oh my gosh, you've got, month over month growth of A, B, C, and D. That's fantastic, right? Yes. And so no one cares at the end of the day about that. So if you are, as a founder, standing on business and talking about your growth numbers and talking about your impact numbers and talk about all of that. And, sometimes the rest of the story can be for another day, can be for that Nicole Casperson podcast, right? 3 years later, after you raise the money, but get the money in your pocket now.
And then, yeah, I know. And then you can say all the things that's been on your mind. Yeah. I mean, and I also think that is important though, to bring it kind of into even like the community and the brand building, right? I mean, I am okay with sharing that reality at times with my own audience, right? Or in your case, maybe even just with like your peers. Or I find now, the audience or your client or your consumer like can want to be a part of this journey, at least when it comes to kind of communicating your own entrepreneur journey or your own founder experiences and that kind of thing. But it's just exactly like you have all these stories within you. Just decide where they make sense to land, right? And be an ultra communicator in that regard, and care more about the business case than anything else, because that's going to ultimately land you back at your purpose, I feel like, is what I'm learning from you today, Tanya. So let's see. To close us out, I want to think about like the next gen of fintech. So you've worked in media, tech, you've worked with educators, families. I guess before we think about the greater vision of fintech in general, for Goalsetter, what is the next wave of growth? What are you working on right now? That we should all be paying attention to. Do you got news for me, Tanya? What you got?
Do I got news for you? Well, listen, because we are talking about impact, and because, as we just talked about, we live in a world with a lot going on right now. If anyone today is not thinking about their money, they are probably dead, because I know everyone I know
is thinking about
money, right? They're thinking about their small business. They're thinking about tariffs. They're thinking about their job and whether or not their job is going to continue to exist because of this, some of the economic changes that are happening. They're thinking about their stock portfolio. Like, the money is on everyone's mind today, Nicole. And so, by definition, then, as we are all thinking about money, it's crazy to think that in this day and age, we can have a next generation that is financially illiterate. Like, I was helping my son yesterday with geometry proofs, and he was like, Mom, when am I ever going to use these geometry proofs after high school? I was like, son, you are never going to use them, but it will help with your logic. And, so there are some ancillary benefits, but you're right. You're never going to use these geometry proofs. I guarantee that every single kid who is in this America today, I don't care if they are 5 years old or 15 years old or, 20 years old and about to graduate from college, they need financial education, and they need it desperately. They need to be conversant in the language of money. So where are we going next? We're everywhere. So, not only does Goalsetter have the Goalsetter app, and we are partnering with banks and financial institutions, wealth management firms around our Goalsetter app to help them attract and engage their next generation of customer, but we're also in school systems now, Nicole. So we are in we are in middle schools, we are in high schools, we are in colleges. So we are launching to school systems all across the nation. We're in 10 states now throughout the country. 26 states require financial education, and more are coming on board, I have no doubt. And so financial education, again, is one of these skills, one of these bodies of knowledge that no one in America can afford to not have in today's climate. So where are we going? We're going everywhere. And we're taking our financial institution partners with us everywhere because they need to be in those school systems. They need to have their brands in front of those young people. They need to be forging a relationship with those young people so that they can say, hey, when you need your first car loan, when you are opening up your first credit card so that you can build your credit score, come to us and allow us to be the place that has a long-standing relationship with you and serves you. So, so we are literally in communities and transforming communities hand in hand with both their school systems and their financial institution in that community. And I think that's, a real difference maker.
Right. And then with the people and then the folks that you partner with, right? The banks and the credit unions and all of that. It's like I think of it with FinTech as Fem too, right? It's if you partner with me and you partner with someone like Tanya and Goalsetter, like that's just the stamp of approval that clearly we have like-minded values and we are all after a similar goal. So let's do this together, right? Like let's work together. Let's find the right place for you, the right partner, the right banking app, the right whatever. And it's, we are the bridge, right? And Goalsetter is just the bridge to enable all of that. And I think from a business perspective, what a great growth tool, right? To just be like, hey guys, let's just keep this rolling into the school system. And of course they're going to love that because then their brands just get exposed to what is the TAM on the next generation of financial services users.
Wow. Nicole, I don't even know that I can come up with that TAM off the top of my head, but let me tell you something about the next generation of financial services users that should show just how much is at stake here. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, I used to work at Nickelodeon, right? If I said, hey, Nicole, was Nickelodeon and was the media, the cable industry in general, were they disrupted by Netflix? What would you say?
Yes.
Yes. Right. Like pretty obvious. Yes, Tanya, of course they were. What most people don't know though, Nicole, is the entire cable industry was disrupted, but it wasn't just by Netflix in the hands of grownups. It was Netflix in the hands of kids. It was kids coming out of their parents' houses, kids coming out of college who said, there's no way I'm going to pay $200 a month for a cable bill. I'll stick with Netflix instead. And those kids, not only was it a price point issue, it was a product issue. They liked the Netflix product better. And it was a brand issue. They didn't know the Cablevision, Cox Communications. They didn't know the cable brands, right? But they knew the Netflix brand and they had a relationship with the Netflix brand. And so, when we talk about kids in financial services, the exact same thing could absolutely happen to the financial services industry. This behemoth that we all think is like the Titanic and is unsinkable. That was cable. We all thought cable was unsinkable, right? And now cable has been sunk, and it's been sunk in the hands or, by the hands of the next generation of digital users who chose alternatives. And that is what's at stake for financial services companies right now. That's what's at stake. So I can't give you an immediate TAM off the top of my head. What I can tell you is the entire financial services industry could absolutely be disrupted and interrupted by the next generation because that's what VCs do, right? VCs fund disruption. You're not getting 50-year-olds to walk away from their Bank of America account, but you can absolutely get 15-year-olds to choose a different offering and to stick with that different offering for the rest of their lives and completely disrupt a model that this country thought, could not be sunk.
Was unbreakable. Yeah. So well said. And I completely agree. I largely was like, I don't think that you could even put a TAM on something that massive but it's because it's true, right? It's like, it's even like, I can, how, don't make me put a tam on women. There's like, it's like half the population. This is endless, right? It's this is an endless wave of opportunity that we've all just been sleeping on and not
Yeah.
taking advantage of. So well said, and I'm really excited to see Goalsetter continue to help make our financial education system happen, and also to bring the right partners and folks along the journey. So, ooh, well, with all of our calendars dinging at us to get going, let me ask you one more question. So, actually, I'm looking at them and I'm going to ask you this one. What's one thing you've learned from your kids that's made you a better CEO?
Oh my gosh, that's so great, Nicole.
I thought you'd like that one.
I love, love, love that question. Um, there's so much. One thing I've learned from my kids that makes me a better CEO. Mom, you don't know everything.
Oh,
And when I say that, there are so many layers to that, right? As a parent, you absolutely think you at least know enough to, give them the appropriate guidance, direction, etc. But the amount of information kids have now has completely eclipsed what they had a generation ago when our parents were raising us, right? So our parents did kind of know everything because they had access to 50 years of knowledge that we didn't have
mm-hmm.
as young people. Well, guess what? Our kids have access to probably the same number of hours of content, information, perspective, POVs, right? That we have had in our 50 years. And so they're absolutely right. We now don't know everything because they, in many ways, know as much as we do because of all of the exposure that they get. So that's the first thing that, I think I have absolutely learned, that the knowledge curve has leveled out between the older generation and the younger generation. And now they are often coming with knowledge that we don't even have.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing that I think, is inherent within that statement is you have to respect young people as your peers in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, we have not been accustomed to doing in past generations, but you've got to listen to their perspectives. You got to listen to their ideas. You have to listen to their lived experience, which is so different than our lived experience, and approach them as peers. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think those two insights have really fundamentally transformed the way I think about my role. My role as a leader is really a facilitator of all of these fantastic people and their ideas and their knowledge and what they're bringing to the table. It is not to provide them with the guidance for how we are going to, go A, B, C, and D road, and then E, F, G, and H roll. It's not to be didactic in that way. It's to create the possibilities for them, to pave the path. I mean, to clear the path so that they can pave the path.
Oh, I think that is so well said. And you could have like a running reel of me on this podcast episode being like, that's so well said. That's so well said, Tanya. That's so well said. I feel like I've said that 100 times. Anyways, but it's so true. And the other question I had was, asking about your top advice for scaling without compromising your values. But I feel like what you've learned from your children is probably one of the best pieces of advice for that, which is the level of humility, knowing like there are people, and a lot of the times it can be the children that know more than you do, and listen to them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's, I think, a very similar sentiment. Like, how do you kind of scale without compromising values is maybe just listening to your customer, listening to your audience, listening to your people, and then, and being consistent with the vision and mission, and making sure that the people that are going to fund it and help scale it along the way, they're going to get you if you're crystal clear on that message. Does that synthesize it?
I think you absolutely synthesized it, Nicole.
Amazing. Well, Tanya, you are the definition of a fintech maverick, and thank you for sharing your story and insights with us today. We're all walking away a bit smarter, more inspired, and more motivated to lead with purpose. So I will keep cheering you and Goalsetter on. And of course, you'll be sharing your insights at the Leadership Summit, which I'm so excited about on April 23rd at the Time Center. So thank you so much for joining us.
I am even more excited to be there. So thank you for having me. And thank you for having me here today, Nicole. Always love talking to you. Love the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for including me in this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. A true fintech maverick.